G'day, in this video, Dean and I came up with this awesome DIY setup in the back of his Prado that you can actually install and remove in under 30 seconds so you still retain use of your third row of seats.
So easy to install, it was lots of fun, and I've used it a bunch of times already. So far, it's exactly what I need.
So if you want to see how we built this, let's go back in time and we'll show you how we started in the shed. Now you might recognize Dean and the Prado here from some of our previous videos, and he is ready to upgrade from this setup that I built for him. So we're using a lot of the same gear as the portable build. We're still gonna have the lithium battery, the DC-DC charger. The difference of course here is being a permanent build, we can add a 700mm drawer for extra storage in the back of the Prado here. And critically, we are keeping the 1500 watt inverter, although we are upgrading it to the new model, and that's all important for Dean's coffee machine.
Guys, it was really important to me to keep the vehicle in its stock standard configuration, so I could still use those back seats. So what we've done is put in this fourth floor that actually covers the seats without needing to remove them. I basically cut a bit of plywood to the right size. Initially I tried shaping it to the interior, but it made it too hard to get in and out. So here's a tip. Cut the edges square, it makes it nice and easy to slide in and out. I drilled a couple of holes that line up with the factory tie-down points, which allows me to fold them up and secure the floor with 4 linch pins. It's a very functional basic setup and it's rock solid.
Now that's a good start if you want to throw some gear in the back, but we're building a fixed setup. So the first thing is to position the main parts and see how much space we're working with. Well, that's the basics pretty well done. We've got the 30-litre drawer fridge on the left-hand side here, 700 drawer on the right-hand side. We're gonna keep this side open because the Prado's factory jack hides inside here. On the other side, I am actually gonna put a DIY wing kit and cut in a custom wing to protect that side and cover up some of the electronics.
Yeah, and what we really love about this too, there's enough room at the back that we can put the inverter and the batteries in, so tucked right out of the way. So low profile, plenty of storage on top. I can even put the 20-litre back on top and use it as a freezer when I'm using this as a fridge. So there's plenty of options I've got here.
We marked up where we need to drill the holes for the drawer itself, then we've removed the frame, and now we're going to fit the L brackets that come with the drawer fridge to each side and actually mark out where we're going to need to mount that down as well. So we're going to do that first, then put the drawer back in.
Right, so we've marked everything up. We're now going to remove this, take the floor out and start drilling some holes so we can fit everything back in. So safety first, guys, make sure you've got your glasses. Just going to drill a couple of pilot holes and then we're going to follow that up by using an 11mm drill bit. And then we're going to insert these T-nuts from the bottom to mount the drawer frame down to the ply.
We've grabbed some M10 by 20 and 25mm bolts just to make sure we've got the right length to actually sit flush with the bottom of this false floor. So it's going to be the 20mm. And we might even want to put a little bit of carpet covering the bottom here to protect the floor as well. We'll just stick it down.
Yep.
So we can actually mount the drawer fridge down on now, which we have to do anyway. We'll line up these 4 marks and then use a couple of screws to mount this fridge down. Check everything is aligned and then tighten it all up.
When you're mounting the drawer frame, you need to take the lid off first. So grab an Allen key and undo all the bolts on top. I'm positioning the frame to line up with the 4 T-nuts that we've fitted in the ply. And remember, you can actually unscrew the drawer mounts and move these front to back if you need to as well. Drop in the M10 bolts and we'll roughly tighten it up and then check that it's square.
All right, so we've mounted the drawer fridge down. We've mounted the frame of the drawers down. We haven't fitted the top yet because we still need to put in the drawer and of course the drawer stops. Before we go ahead and test how easy it is to fit this all in and out of the vehicle, I'm going to talk about my custom wing design. So I'm using the Adventure King's DIY wing kit, which funnily enough is the perfect length for the 700 drawer. So I've obviously got to cut this down to size to suit the Prado. And we're going to be using this front fascia piece to make it all neat and tidy. But I'm actually going to be using some of these stainless steel table brackets, mount them on the side here so that the whole wing can lift up and remove rather than having one piece that's solid and one piece that's removable. So I think it cost me about 15 or 20 bucks for these 2 brackets, which is nothing in the scheme of things. And it's going to give us that really nice custom finish. Really easy access to all that storage space.
Okay, but before we go any further, we need to test fit this so we can get the correct dimensions for the wing. And how good is that? You can still get to the 4-inch pins to lock it down, and the setup is starting to take shape.
Everything is now bolted in, draws in properly. I'm going to start working on this wing by tracing out the rough shape of the interior panel here. Then we're going to transfer this to the actual bit of timber, cut it out with a jigsaw, and test fit it. I'll obviously make sure that I cut this end square. Once we add the carpet, there should be perfect shape. Not a bad attempt for a first try there. Couple of little corners here I could probably cut 2 or 3 mil off just to let the carpet curl around the edge and protect the interior panels. But that's almost perfect. I'm pretty stoked with the fit here, so I can start gluing down the carpet with some contact adhesive and putting a little weight on it with our lithium batteries to keep pressure on the glue while it sets. I'll cut that carpet about 1 inch or 25 millimeters off the edge of the ply to make it easy to work with, then cut a joint on the corners to allow it to fold over and follow the shape of the timber. Little by little, I'm adding glue, waiting for it to get tacky, and then rolling the carpet over the edge to secure each section for a really neat finish.
So we're halfway through the build, and I've got to tell you, it's looking pretty good at the moment. Khan is currently working on finishing up with the wing, and then once he's done that, we're going to start properly working on the 12 bolt.
How good is this? Look how easy it is to take the whole unit out of the Prado. We've started on some sawhorses, which will make the job of doing 12 volt so much easier. We're going to be using 2 of the Adventure King's 60 amp hour lithium batteries. That's going to allow the second row seat to actually come back to its natural position, and we can run the 1500 watt inverter as well. We're spacing this off the fridge, so we're going to have plenty of airflow. And to be honest, Dean is probably only going to use this for making a couple of coffees in the morning anyway, so it's not going to be on for all that long. Finally, DC-DC charger, I'm thinking we'll mount it here, which will be hidden by that custom wing we made, so it's going to look neat and tidy, you're not going to see anything. Then finally, in this wing as well, I'm going to fit a battery monitor. I'm going to squeeze an inverter remote in, and I'm thinking of just running an extension cord so you have easy access to that inverter power from the back of the vehicle.
Like any build, you've got to start by positioning the pieces to make sure it's all going to work. We're using a tie-down kit to secure the batteries, so we need a couple of eyelets here, and we have to mark out where the DC to DC charger will mount.
I'm using a center punch to keep me on the right spot, and then I'm half fixing the 2 bottom screws first, which allows me to sit the DC-DC charger in position and ensure the top 2 marks are correct before I start to drill them. That's not a bad little tip. And while we're talking tips, I also just unscrewed this quick connect plug from the back of the drawer fridge. It means you can reroute the cable and use its full length to make it easier to connect up.
Meanwhile, I've been cutting all the wiring to length, crimping terminals to the ends and adding heat shrink, so that when we go to wire all this together, it's all done and we just need to grab the right piece. Plus, we finished up with a piece of ply with marine carpet for the inverter to mount onto. We've used a couple of L brackets to mount it to the base and to the top. Plus, used a 100mm hole saw through the timber that had plenty of ventilation for the fridge.
So as you saw there, we really took our time to make sure that the 12 volt looks really neat and tidy. Inverter is solidly mounted over on this side. The 2 batteries are ready to be strapped down. We've got all the wiring cut to length, terminated with the heat shrink on each end. And I've also got the 500 amp shunt here and the DC-DC charger. That's all going to be hidden in this wing. But it also means that when we add the battery monitor here, you'll be able to see the battery capacity from the back of the Prado, and it's going to look really good.
And just to tidy it up just that little bit better, we had this spare drawer top from a 700mm drawer set. We've mounted that on top of the drawer fridge to protect it and add a little insulation from direct sun.
Now, because we're obviously running 2 60 amp hour lithium batteries in parallel, one of the first things we need to consider is that we need to connect these in parallel. So both the negatives need to be connected and both the positives need to be connected. I've obviously cut these wires up to suit. Once they're connected, we'll have a 120 amp hour battery. Importantly as well, when you're doing anything with 2 batteries, you want to run your positive to one and your negative to the other. That way the power is actually passing through both batteries in order to complete the circuit. So for example, I've got my 25 amp DC-DC charger over here. The earth is actually going to go to the shunt in order to be measured, and the positive is going to go across here to this fuse block. Now that fuse block is going to go to the positive, and this shunt is going to go to the negative, so that DC-DC charger is charging both batteries evenly, and then it's going to be combined with these two even length wires. So you can almost think of it as if these terminals aren't here and you've just got a single battery for the positive and negative terminal. This little wire that I've got here actually connects to the front of the shunt here, and it needs a small fuse, so I've obviously got an inline fuse with just a 1 amp fuse. I'm going to combine that to my main fuse block just to get power to the shunt, and then cut that to length and press it in there. This wire here is actually an earth that's connected to a quick connect plug so that we can connect up the drawer fridge, and importantly, I'm making sure that that also goes through the shunt so that our fridge is being measured. While we're doing this, we've left all the fuses out, and I'm going to leave the batteries to be the last thing we connect. Making sure that all our loads are going through the shunt, including the inverter, so that they're being measured accurately. And if I put this I'm going to put this 1 amp fuse in. Obviously all the other fuses are temporarily in for the moment while we test everything. And I'll just check before we start running everything that. There we go. So we're at 13 volts at the moment. The fridge is just turned on. How good is that? It still looks a little messy now as we haven't tucked all the wiring up and out of the way because we still need to be able to pick it up and fit it in. Now we're strapping the batteries down and we're good to lift it into the Prado. Well, that's achievable. I'm gonna do a big arc. Too easy. The cherry on top, in my opinion, of this whole build is this custom little setup over here. It perfectly fits the wing. It's got a King's battery monitor, so you can actually keep an eye on your battery charge levels. It's also got a 240 volt AC outlet. That's just an extension cord that perfectly fits in there and is connected to the inverter. And then of course, it has an inverter remote. Initially, I tried to make this with the actual inverter remote built in, but it was all a bit too hard. So I went through a number of different prototypes on the 3D printer, eventually copied the back of that inverter remote and made my own complete setup, which means you can turn your inverter on and off from here, plug your coffee machine, your induction cooktop, or your laptop right in here, easy. That means you can run all your gear right at the back of the vehicle without having to get behind those seats. Now, if you want to build a setup like this in your vehicle, a great place to start is go to your local 4Drive Supacentre store and check out the 4 interactive lifestyle displays. This is pretty closely based on the Day Tripper setup, obviously with our own little custom touches, which has turned out so good.
So easy to install. It was lots of fun. So if you've got any comments and you want to see more about this, please put them in below.
Thanks for watching.